AITA for grounding my daughter and canceling her senior trip after finding out she was cheating on her boyfriend. This situation has been weighing heavily on me, and I'm feeling incredibly conflicted about how I handled it. I've tried to instill strong morals and values in my daughters, but this situation has left me questioning whether I went too far. I have two daughters, Lizzie, 17F, and Mackenzie, 14F. Their dad and I divorced a few years ago after I discovered he was having an affair. The divorce was hard on all of us, but I've worked hard to create a stable environment for my daughters. I have primary custody, and their dad has them on weekends and during the summers. Lizzie and Jacob. Lizzie has been dating Jacob, 18M, for over a year. He's an incredibly sweet young man who has become a regular fixture in our home. He's polite, hardworking, and incredibly smart. He's even on track to be valedictorian of their class. It's been wonderful to see Lizzie happy with someone like Jacob. I've always thought they had a great relationship. They spend time together, laugh constantly, and seem genuinely happy in each other's company. Jacob is the kind of boyfriend any parent would want for their child. So when I stumbled across evidence that Lizzie might be cheating on him, I was shocked and heartbroken, discovering the truth. It started a few weeks ago when I overheard Lizzie on the phone in her room. At first, I thought nothing of it. She's often on the phone with friends or Jacob, but then I heard her say the name Brandon in a flirty tone. My stomach sank. I thought maybe I was imagining things, so I brushed it off, telling myself it was probably innocent. Then, about a week later, Lizzie told me she was going out to hang with a friend. That didn't raise any red flags. She's a responsible kid and usually upfront about her plans. But when I happened to look out the window, I saw her get into a car and greet a guy with a kiss. That guy wasn't Jacob. It felt like a punch to the gut. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Jacob was still coming over regularly, and they were still acting like a couple, holding hands, cuddling on the couch, and laughing together. Knowing Lizzie was secretly seeing someone else behind his back disgusted me. Confronting Lizzie. That evening, after Jacob had gone home, I decided I couldn't keep quiet any longer. I sat Lizzie down and asked her directly, "Are you cheating on Jacob?" She rolled her eyes and said, "Mom, that's none of your business." I told her it absolutely was my business. I reminded her that I'd raised her to treat people with respect and integrity, and what she was doing was neither. She sighed and admitted that she had been seeing Brandon on the side. When I asked her why, she shrugged and said, "I don't know. I'm bored with Jacob. Brandon is more my type." I was floored. "If you're not happy with Jacob, why not just break up with him?" I asked. Her response, "I don't know if I even want to be with Brandon. I'm just having fun flirting and teasing right now." Hearing her so casually dismiss her actions and Jacob's feelings was infuriating. I told her cheating was unacceptable, whether she was just flirting or seriously seeing Brandon. I told her I expected better from her and that her behavior was hurtful and wrong. The consequences. To make it clear that her actions had consequences, I grounded Lizzie. She wasn't allowed to go out with friends, and I also canceled her upcoming senior trip. This trip was something she'd been looking forward to for months, but I felt it was an appropriate punishment given the seriousness of her actions. She didn't take it well. She stormed out of the house and went to stay with her dad for a few days. Her dad's reaction. A few days later, my ex called me to lecture me about my decision. He said I was being unreasonable and overreacting. "They're teenagers," he said dismissively. "It's just a high school relationship. You're blowing this out of proportion." He then accused me of letting my bitterness over our divorce cloud my judgment. "Stop punishing my daughter because you're still mad about what happened between us," he said. I was furious. This wasn't about my divorce or my feelings toward him. It was about teaching Lizzie right from wrong. I told him, "This has nothing to do with you." Lizzie's behavior was hurtful and disrespectful, and I'm teaching her that actions have consequences. Cheating isn't acceptable, whether it's in high school or adulthood. He still thinks I'm being too harsh. Lizzie's feelings. Lizzie has barely spoken to me since the incident. She's still staying at her dad's, and while I've tried to reach out to her, she's been distant. I know she's angry and feels like I overstepped, but I also feel like I'm doing what's best for her in the long run. My dilemma. Now I'm questioning everything. Did I overreact by grounding her and canceling her trip? Should I have stayed out of it and let her figure things out on her own? Or was I right to step in and try to teach her a lesson about respect and integrity? This situation has brought up so many emotions for me, especially because of my history with her dad. I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of infidelity, and I never want my daughters to think that kind of behavior is acceptable. But part of me wonders if I handled it the wrong way or if I should have approached it differently. So, Reddit. AITA for grounding my daughter and canceling her senior trip after finding out she was cheating on her boyfriend? Or was I justified in trying to teach her an important life lesson? Update. AITA for grounding my daughter and canceling her senior trip after finding out she was cheating on her boyfriend? First, thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. I've been reading through your advice, and it's been incredibly helpful in processing this complicated situation. A lot has happened since I first shared the story, and I wanted to provide an update. Lizzie comes back. After a few days at her dad's, Lizzie came back home. She wasn't exactly thrilled to see me, but I was relieved to have her back under my roof, so we could at least try to talk things through. I gave her some space for the first day and didn't bring up the situation. On the second day, I asked if we could talk. She rolled her eyes but sat down with me. I know you're upset with me, I started, but I need you to understand where I'm coming from. Lizzie didn't say much at first, but I explained that my decision to ground her and cancel her trip wasn't about controlling her or ruining her life. It was about teaching her that her actions have consequences. I reminded her how much Jacob has been a part of her life and how hurtful it is to treat someone who cares about you that way. She finally spoke up and admitted that she understood why I was upset, but still felt like I overreacted. It's my relationship, Mom. I should be able to handle it how I want. I get that, I said, but relationships involve two people, and Jacob deserves to be treated with honesty and respect. If you're not happy, that's okay. But stringing him along while you figure out what you want isn't fair to him. She didn't argue with me, which I took as a small win. Jacob finds out. Not long after Lizzie came back home, Jacob came by to visit. I stayed out of their way, but a little while later, Lizzie stormed into my room, furious. "Did you tell Jacob I was cheating on him?" she snapped. I was caught off guard. "No, I didn't say anything to him," I replied. Apparently, Jacob had confronted her about Brandon after hearing rumors at school. Lizzie was upset because she thought I had told him, but I assured her I hadn't. She stormed off again, and I could hear her arguing with Jacob in the living room. Later, Lizzie admitted that Jacob had broken up with her after their argument. She was devastated, even though she had been seeing Brandon on the side. Conversations about respect. After things calmed down, I sat down with Lizzie again. She was clearly heartbroken, but I felt this was an important moment to talk about accountability. "Lizzie," I said gently, "I'm sorry you're hurting, but this is why I've been trying to talk to you about respect and honesty. When you're in a relationship, trust is everything. Jacob trusted you, and when that trust is broken, it's hard to repair." She started crying and admitted she felt guilty about how she treated Jacob. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said. "I just didn't know what I wanted, and I didn't want to lose him." I told her that it was okay to feel confused in a relationship, but that the right thing to do would have been to be honest with Jacob from the start. No one expects you to have all the answers, but leading someone on isn't fair to them, or to you. The senior trip. After our talk, Lizzie brought up the senior trip again. She begged me to reconsider, saying she had learned her lesson and that she didn't want to miss out on the experience with her friends. I told her I'd think about it. I could see that she was genuinely remorseful, but I also didn't want to undermine the lesson I was trying to teach her. After discussing it with a few trusted friends and family members, I decided to compromise. I told Lizzie that she could go on the trip if she earned back the privilege. She would have to do extra chores around the house, take responsibility for her schoolwork, and demonstrate that she understood why her behavior was wrong. She agreed, and for the next few weeks, she worked hard to prove herself. She apologized to Jacob, even though their relationship was over, and she started taking more responsibility for her actions. Where we stand now, Lizzie is still heartbroken over the breakup, but I think she's beginning to understand the importance of honesty and respect in relationships. She's also made it clear that she doesn't want to pursue anything serious with Brandon, and is focusing on herself for now. As for the senior trip, she earned back the privilege and went with her friends. She texted me every day to check in, which I appreciated, and she seemed genuinely grateful for the opportunity to go. Reflection. Looking back, I don't regret grounding Lizzie or canceling her trip initially. I believe it was important to show her that actions have consequences. However, I'm glad I was able to find a compromise that allowed her to learn from her mistakes without feeling completely shut out. This situation has also been a wake-up call for me as a parent. Teenagers make mistakes, and while it's important to hold them accountable, it's equally important to guide them toward growth and understanding. Thank you, Reddit, for your advice and support. It's been a tough few weeks, but I feel like Lizzie and I are on the right path, and hopefully, she's learned something that will help her in future relationships.